Welcome back to the AI Breakdown Brief, all the AI headline news you need in around 5 minutes. Today we kick off with a small announcement that has people very excited. Yesterday, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman tweets, "On November 6th, we'll have some great stuff to show developers. No GPT-5 or 4.5 or anything like that, calm down, but I still think people will be very happy." So what's going on is this is what OpenAI is calling its first developer conference. They write, the one-day event will bring hundreds of developers from around the world together with the team at OpenAI to preview new tools and exchange ideas. In-person attendees will also be able to join breakout sessions led by members of OpenAI's technical staff. The quote that they ran with from Sam Altman is similarly vague, saying, "We're looking forward to showing our latest work to enable developers to build new things." Now, of course, this has got people speculating like crazy. Vion Williams says, "Okay, got it, agent systems based on GPT-4. Max Kennan says some wild guessing, cheaper API, some kind of agent, or some kind of code model. Robert Scoble says multimodal coming? November is going to be fun here on X." And Nate Chan points out, OpenAI has the chance to create a WWDC type level of excitement event if they do this every year and with as much care as Apple. Konstantinos, however, points out that that's kind of far away, and that in some ways a 2-month lull might represent an opportunity for someone else. He tweets, "No new versions of GPT until at least November 6th, so everyone can calm down. Or is this an opportunity for others in the space to get ahead?" Now, I think the big question from where I'm sitting is how much whatever gets announced there is really just for developers, things like new tooling, versus how much is something that those of us who are normies in the AI space will actually derive immediate value from. Of course, updates for developers eventually mean value accrues to the normies as they get to use new features that are built on top of those new tools for developers. But in the meantime, everyone's going to spend the next 2 months just guessing. When it comes to the theory around multimodality, what's going for that idea is that OpenAI had previously talked about bringing a multimodal version of ChatGPT this year, and had intimated that the only reason that they hadn't was an AI chip shortage. That would certainly fit with the pattern of doing things with GPT-4 that soup it up so much from where it started that it almost feels like a different model. One other interesting little stat before we move on. Logan, who does developer relations at OpenAI, tweeted, "It's also crazy to think that more than 2 million developers are using our APIs to build AI experiences. Just an interesting little nugget in the scale of who is building right now." Now, that OpenAI event will be in San Francisco, and staying in the realm of California, that state's governor, Gavin Newsom, has signed an executive order designed to start preparing California for the AI revolution. The governor's office writes, "California is the global hub for generative artificial intelligence. We are the natural leader in this emerging field of technology, tools that could very well change the world. To capture its benefits for the good of society, but also to protect against its potential harms, Gavin Newsom issued an executive order today laying out how California's measured approach will focus on shaping the future of ethical, transparent, and trustworthy AI while remaining the world's AI leader." So what is actually in this executive order? There are a number of different provisions. One is a risk analysis report. This will, quote, direct state agencies and departments to perform a joint risk analysis of potential threats to and vulnerabilities of California's critical energy infrastructure by the use of Gen AI. A second area is a procurement blueprint. Basically, this is all about developing a process by which generative AI can be used in government offices and agencies. Beneficial uses of Gen AI report. In addition to just looking at those critical risks, Newsom is also directing state agencies to develop a report, quote, examining the most significant and beneficial uses of Gen AI in the state. Deployment and analysis framework. Basically, this is a mechanism by which the state can start conducting pilots as well as creating sandbox environments to test new projects. The executive order also establishes a formal partnership with the University of California, Berkeley, and Stanford to consider and evaluate the impacts of Gen AI on California. And one that's really interesting is the category they call state employee training. The governor's office writes, "To support California's state government workforce and prepare for the next generation of skills needed to thrive in the Gen AI economy, agencies will provide trainings for state government workers to use state-approved Gen AI to achieve equitable outcomes and will establish criteria to evaluate the impact of Gen AI to the state government workforce." Now, one of the things that I think is interesting about this executive order is the extent to which it is focused on preparing the government itself, the actual offices, departments, agencies that comprise California's government, figuring out how to actually use and deploy generative AI themselves. I think there's something very positive about that, in that rather than just viewing this technology in the abstract, they're actually trying to put it into practice. It seems likely to me that actually getting one's hands dirty with these tools is going to end up leading to better policies around them. What's more, California has now created something of a template that other state governments could use, should they want, to themselves engage in a similar set of experiments and research. Now, moving on to our next topic, but staying within the theme of governments and AI, Google has announced an updated policy around AI-generated election ads. Bloomberg reports that starting from November, Google will mandate that any election-related ads that feature AI-generated content will be required to have what they call a prominent label and disclosure identifying them as such. Bloomberg writes, advertisers must include prominent language like, this audio was computer-generated, or this image does not depict real events. Notably, the policy does not apply to minor fixes such as image resizing or brightening, but in many ways this is one of those just super obvious things. It is really hard in general to create mechanisms by which AI-generated content can be identified, but platforms who are gatekeepers of content that is distributed on their platforms, especially paid advertising content, can require this sort of disclosure. And so I think that while Google might be the first to make this policy relative to the big advertising platforms, it seems likely that others will follow suit, if only because it's likely that they will be forced to at some point in the future if they don't do it voluntarily. Last up today, Time magazine is doing a big cover story around artificial intelligence. One of the covers is an excerpt from Walter Isaacson's new biography of Elon Musk that's all about how his opinions on artificial intelligence have evolved and why it started to dominate a lot of his thinking behind the scenes. And the other part of the cover story is a first-time list of the 100 most influential people in artificial intelligence. There are a lot of familiar faces there. Sam Altman from OpenAI, Eliezer Yudkowsky, Jan LeCun from Meta, and many more. I think that tomorrow I might do a deeper dive into who is on this list. But for now, an interesting reminder that for whatever summer lull we might have had in terms of the mainstream exposure of artificial intelligence, it seems likely that that lull won't last for a particularly long time. Anyways, friends, that is going to do it for today's AI Breakdown Brief. I'll be back soon with the main AI Breakdown.